caught her face as she absorbed it, the way her shoulders squared instead of collapsing, and she asked, quietly but clearly, "May I sing one more?" And Marcus almost laughed, because refusing would make him look threatened. So he waved his hand again, granting permission like a king tossing scraps, unaware that he had just signed away his crown, because this time Aaliyah chose a song everyone knew. One of Marcus's own signature hits, a song he famously avoided performing live in its original key, and the audience gasped, the judges shifting uncomfortably, but Marcus couldn't object without admitting the truth. So the music began, and Aaliyah didn't imitate him. She reimagined the song, slowing it down, stripping it bare, exposing every emotional seam, and when she reached the chorus, she lifted it effortlessly into the original key, then higher, adding harmonics that were never written, notes that Marcus had never dared to attempt. And the crowd lost control, shouting, crying, some holding their heads in disbelief because this was no longer about talent. It was about revelation, and Marcus's face flushed as he realized the moment had slipped beyond his grasp. That every second she sang was rewriting how people would hear his own music, and when she finished, the standing ovation was immediate and unanimous, the judges on their feet, the audience chanting her name, and Marcus didn't stand, because he couldn't, because standing would mean acknowledging what everyone else already knew, that the girl he tried to mock had just eclipsed him on his own stage. And the twist came days later, when the clip went viral across America, millions dissecting not just her voice but his behavior, former collaborators speaking out about how he had dodged live performances and relied on studio tricks, while Aaliyah received offers from producers who praised not just her talent but her courage. And when Marcus attempted damage control with a half-hearted apology, it rang hollow, because the truth had already settled, and months later, at a charity concert meant to showcase unity, Marcus found himself sharing a stage with Aaliyah again, except this time he was the guest and she was the headliner, and when she invited him to sing with her, extending grace instead of revenge, he declined, citing health reasons. While the crowd understood what he could not say, that there were still notes he could never hit, and as Aaliyah sang that night, under warm lights instead of harsh ones, she remembered standing alone with shaking hands and realized that sometimes the moment meant to break you becomes the proof that you were never meant to bend, and that the loudest silence in the world is the one left behind when arrogance meets undeniable truth. The night the famous singer forced the black girl to sing solo was supposed to be another victory lap for him. Another carefully staged moment where his power, fame, and ego fed off public humiliation, and as the packed auditorium in Atlanta buzzed with anticipation, nobody in that crowd, not the judges, not the cameras, not even the girl herself, understood that history was about to bend in a direction no one could control, because the girl, Aaliyah Brooks, stood alone under the blinding white stage lights with her hands trembling at her sides, the microphone too heavy with expectation, while Marcus Vail, the internationally celebrated vocalist known for his flawless studio albums and ruthless televised talent competitions, leaned back in his chair with a smile that was sharp enough to cut, having just dismissed the rest of her school choir with a lazy flick of his hand, telling them they were background noise, and that he wanted to hear what the quiet one could do on her own. And the audience laughed nervously, unsure whether they were witnessing entertainment or cruelty, because Marcus had built his brand on moments like this, breaking people down under the guise of honesty. But what made this moment different was the way he looked at her, not just dismissive but amused, as if he had already decided she would fail, as if her presence alone offended his idea of greatness. And he said into the microphone, loud enough for every camera and every live stream viewer across the United States to hear, "Go on, sing without your safety net. Let's see if there's anything special there." And Aaliyah swallowed hard, remembering how she almost hadn't come to this audition at all, how her grandmother had pressed a cracked silver necklace into her palm that morning and whispered that some voices are tested before they're heard. And as the pianist waited for her cue, Aaliyah closed her eyes and something inside her shifted, because she had sung alone before, in empty churches, in cramped apartments, in moments where singing was the only thing that kept the world from swallowing her whole. But never like this, never in front of someone who wanted her to fail. And when she opened her mouth, the first note was soft, almost fragile, just enough to make Marcus smirk and lean toward his fellow judges as if to say, "I told you." Yet the note didn't fade, it bloomed, stretching and bending with a control that wasn't taught but lived. And the room began to change, because her voice carried something raw and ancient, something that didn't ask for permission, and as she moved into the next phrase, the air itself seemed to tighten, the laughter dying out, replaced by a stillness that demanded attention, and Marcus straightened in his chair, his smile faltering as he realized the pitch she was holding was one he himself avoided live. A note he always let backing vocals or studio edits handle, and Aaliyah didn't just hit it. She climbed it, held it, shaped it, then descended with a precision that made the pianist glance up in disbelief, and the audience began to murmur. Because this was no longer a setup, this was a reckoning, and Marcus tried to regain control by interrupting her mid-phrase, raising his hand and saying, "Stop, stop, you're pushing too hard, that's not musical." But she didn't stop, either because she couldn't hear him or because something deeper had taken over, and the note she released next cracked something open in the room. A soaring run that carried pain, defiance, and grace all at once, and for the first time in years, Marcus Vail felt exposed, because every vocal coach in that room knew exactly what was happening. She was singing beyond his range, beyond his control, beyond his narrative, and as the final note rang out, perfectly centered, unshaken, the silence afterward was thunderous, stretching so long it became unbearable, until one person stood, then another, then hundreds, and the applause erupted like a storm, while Marcus remained seated, clapping slowly with a tight jaw, his pride bleeding through the cracks of his applause, and when the noise finally settled, he leaned into his microphone and said with forced calm, "That was unexpected." But Aaliyah saw the flicker in his eyes, the calculation, the need to reclaim dominance, and that's when he twisted the knife, telling her that one good moment didn't make a career, that she lacked polish, that her tone was too emotional, a word often used to dismiss voices like hers, and the cameras caught her face as she absorbed it, the way